Ramsey, welcome to the show, man.
Man, glad to be here, Cable. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. Well, so where are you where'd you just get back from?
Just got back from the United Kingdom. Had not planned on going up till about 5 or 6 weeks ago. Got a last minute invite to come and scratch a bucket list hunt. Believe it or not, it was driven pheasants,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd always wanted to do that. I shot driven woodcock last year over there, and that was amazing. But this was just a little more of a formality. It was a little more formal environment, and we went to an old estate called Holcomb Estate, which, gosh, I guess it's been in existence since
Huh.
1730s or 40s. A magnificent estate, 25,000 acres up around Norfolk, and supposedly that is where driven hunting originated, was on that estate. And I called around, I called a friend of mine to have me over last year, and I said, hey, last year y'all let me fall in just wearing my regular stuff. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think I can get by? And he said, no, go buy the breeks. I said, but he said, Ramsey, you have to go buy the breeks. And I'm glad I did. Now look, I felt pretty I don't know how to describe how I felt putting on those big tall stockings and putting on those little they call plus fours there in my hotel room and stepping out into public wearing it. But I would have been the only one without it had I not. And actually, it's very functional gear um, for that setting. It really suits them well.
So this also comes with a tweed jacket.
Did not wear a tweed jacket, man. I wore my Tom Beckby wax cotton. They
Okay.
do allow wax cotton, but some of the gents, some of the guys on the estate at the utmost formal, they do wear the tweed jacket. I wore the tweed plus fours, which are pants that come just below your knees, and you got these big merino wool socks. At the bottom of those pants, you cinch them, and then you pull these big knee stockings up and tie a little tassel around them so they don't fall down, and then you fold them back over, and they look very proper now.
Uh-huh.
And when you pull up your wellies, your big tall rubber boots, you just see this band and the tassels hanging over. And last year I wore my full blown 30-year-old wax cotton pants, and when it rained, I was in good shape. And a lot of those boys, that were wearing the plus fours and wearing the tweed coats, they oohed and awed over the Tom Beckby wax cotton coat and those old Filson pants. But I tell you, at the end of the day, going through mud puddles, going through bracken, going through some of the wet and muddy stuff that you go through on those estates, they were clean. They pulled their boots off, and they were just as clean as when they stepped out of
Huh.
the room that morning. I needed to hose off my pants and hose off everything. You know what I'm saying? It's very functional gear, and that heavy wool, because it's damp. It's damp and it's cold. We were hunting, I'm gonna guess, within a mile of the sea, the English Channel, and it's very, very humid, very damp, very windy. For
Mm.
40 degrees, it's pretty darn cold. And layering up like they do is just well suited to their environment.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I tell you what, I felt downright dapper wearing a necktie duck hunting. It had my last year. I actually was in a little hunting store, and I got the little flat top cap, and just for a novelty. But I wore it. We went deer hunting, deer stalking on the last couple of days, and I wore it hunting, and I realized just how much warmer that flat top cap with a little insulation was than my wax cotton cap.
Uh-huh.
And so I brought it over there, and I mean, I was glad to have it. Wore a necktie, wore a Tom Beckby sweater under my wax cotton coat, and looked the part.
Yeah. Very gentlemanly for sure.
Very gentleman, much more gentlemanly than I'm accustomed. We duck hunters have just got a mindset. I think that's the,
Oh, we're scumbags. Us duck
well,
hunters.
I wouldn't
We're
say
scummy.
that, but
Nah, we are. We're
maybe,
degenerate. We're
maybe.
degenerate scumbags. We get up at 2 or 3 in the morning. I mean, I don't. When I was a younger man, I sometimes just slept at the WMA just to keep my spot or claim my spot. But now I'm not with kids and stuff. I don't get up that early, and my kids don't want to do a public land death march. So
Get it.
It's a little more tame these days. But yes, I was a total degenerate back then. Leave the bar and go straight to the lake and spend the night there, have a
Yeah.
campfire until
Yeah.
the park ranger came and told you to put it out. And then when he'd leave, we'd light the fire back up, We played this game, cat and mouse with him. And but yeah, it was those were the good old days. But
I
total
posted a bunch of
degenerate.
pictures of this hunt. I posted a bunch of pictures of this hunt because it was a bucket list hunt. I wanted to approach this. First and foremost, I'm an experienced collector. And I wanted to experience. And last year, I kicked it off with the penultimate. Oh, I should say the ultimate driven, which is woodcock. And
Mm.
whoever knew there was such a thing, but it was the single
So
best
are
day
the
of my life.
woodcock wild birds?
Yes, they're wild.
Uh-huh.
They're 100% wild, migratory, and
I
the
was gonna say, like,
European
how would
woodcock.
you? I didn't know how, like, because
I'm
those
gonna
things
tell you,
fly. Unlike a pheasant, they're not gonna typically migrate. They're gonna stay. They're pretty residential. Uh,
the pheasants are put and take kind of,
uh-huh.
but
Yeah.
now under their law. It's not like they throw them birds out and they're walking around like a bunch of barnyard chickens the day before we get there. They have to put those birds out in late July, early August. So now we're dealing with a 2.5, 3 pound wild pheasant that is as
Hmm.
smart as a little wild turkey. And I walked through the whole deal because I think it's very interesting. The woodcock, by comparison, are migratory, and they uh, they hunt them similarly, but cocker spaniels, those look the real cocker spaniels, not the little droopy-eyed puppy dogs we see around here at pet
Hmm.
shops. But I mean, the real cockers were made for this sport. They're small, they're fierce, they get down under the cover. I mean, and push these birds out. And a woodcock, as the beaters are coming through with all their dogs, those birds are wild. They're going to fly like they're going to fly. As comparison, when the beaters kind of you'll see them. You'll be in your post on your peg, and you'll see the beaters ascending upon a thicket or a woodland and rolling birds in front of them. But once they get the birds hemmed up, they can't walk too slow because they can't let the birds squirt out, but they can't walk too fast because they don't want all the birds to fly over the shooting line at one time. It's an
Hmm.
art and a science to it. And so as compared to sleeping at the boat ramp and getting up early hunting Mississippi public land, we got up. I think breakfast was at 8 o'clock, and
Right.
didn't get daylight until 7:30. But breakfast was at 8, and we ate a nice full breakfast and moseyed on out and went to the estate hall, a magnificent. I'd call it a castle, but they don't call them castles.
Uh-huh.
And Drew, they come around, you draw your peg. I drew number three, which means that generally with eight, there's 8 pegs per session. So I'm gonna rotate two every time. I start with three, then I go five, then I go seven, then I bounce around to number one, which is usually a fallback. And you revolve around at each stop. But I tell you the mindset is there was so much comment about this when I posted these pictures up because it is proper. You are wearing a very traditional garb. This sport was developed in the Victorian era, back during the Golden Robber, the
Yeah.
robber baron type days. Very very have and have not. But that's when it developed, and so as a nod to tradition, it's not like a snob. Hey, 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 look at me, I'm dressed up, and it's not like that. It is pure tradition. It's a nod to tradition. And when you hear words like respect, respect for the estate, respect for the tradition, respect for the birds. And here's the craziest thing that to me differentiates the mindset of this driven shoot versus what we think of as bird hunting back home is one of the foremost, number one rule of safety, but one of the foremost etiquettes is this is not about bird numbers. You don't want to be the asshole that shot all the birds.
Right.
And you dare not shoot the easy birds. If a pheasant's coming over you 15 yards or 15 feet off the deck, you let him pass. You want to push yourself. You want to be the guy
Really? Huh.
that's shooting the 35 and 40 yarders. The whole etiquette. It is not about the body count. It's about the quality, not the quantity. The quality of the shooting, the quality of the company, the quality of the day, of the estate, of the presentation of the birds. And at this particular state, there's no bag limit. A lot of times when you shoot driven, this particular day is going to have 150 or 200 or whatever bag. There's no bag limit here. I think we shot 70 or 80 birds, but the birds I shot were all rangy. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they were rangy. And
This
and
is a
and
far cry from my
oh,
experience 2 weekends ago. My buddy and I went out to, well, he lives in Amarillo, and we had our pheasant opener in the Texas Panhandle. And so we walked away from that, and he has two German wire hares. One of them's getting up there in age, and I took my lab to play cleanup. But we needed more hunters. There was just the two of us for 2 days, and we had so many roosters get away because we didn't have a blocker, or someone to shoot there at the end, and we would push them down these hedgerows, and then at the end they just run out or they'd fly out or whatever. I mean, we had the truck parked there. We'd park the truck there, walk around the hedgerows, and then enter the hedgerow and then walk back to the truck, and we had the radio blaring classic rock as loud as possible, and left one dog usually barking in the truck because he wanted to be there. We tried, man, but yeah, it was tough. We got 4 birds in 2 days, and
oh,
we thought that was pretty good for wild
well, for
Texas
hunting it is. For
pheasants.
hunting
Yeah.
wild birds, I think, we take what we can get. But the mindset is what blows my mind. Now, last year, something I learned over in the UK is they don't have bag limits. For waterfowl, they don't have bag limits. For
Mm,
geese, for ducks, they don't have bag limits. Now, you may be hunting off the mainland in what they call the foreshore on a club, and the club may have imposed bag limits, but the country doesn't have what we recognize like 6 birds, not to
mm,
exceed 4 mottlers, not to exceed 2 hens. They don't have that. And what's so odd about that, what I learned last time about that mindset is because all us old guys here in the States say, well, duck hunting's not a numbers game. Yeah, but it is. And I tell you why it is, because it's 6 ducks in the Mississippi Flyway or in the Central Flyway, 6 ducks, not to
mm,
exceed 5 mottlers, not to exceed 2 hens and 3 pintails or whatever have you like that. So it kind of sort of is a numbers game. But over there, what was so wild is shooting. We shot geese by moonlight because there's no time limits either. We shot goose by full moon,
mm,
called flighting geese. And even though there's no bag limits, the cultural practice was to stop around 4 or 5 geese. And what's so odd is in the presence of no bag limits, the hunters aren't numbers oriented. So
mm,
they leave with 2 or they leave with 5 or they leave with 10 and they're just happy campers. It doesn't matter. They don't feel like, oh, I only got half a limit. Cable got a limit and I'm jealous. They don't
mm.
feel that. They just have a great time. But so we're out here hunting in ties and hunting with these tweeds and shooting birds that challenge us. But another difference in the mindset, Cable, was I think it's fair enough to say that none of us are out there to watch the sunrise. We're out there, we're hunting, we're shooting birds. But never more so have I seen an experience that was as much about everything else as it was about the trigger pull. And like this whole day, we started at 8 in the morning. We drew pegs at 8:30. We're on our first peg. There's 6 stops throughout the day, and the whole day is orchestrated. It's an orchestrated effort. We, the shooting line, 8 of us. Then we've got beaters, 25 of them, I'm going to say, plus their dogs. Then we've got picker-uppers, the guys behind us, safe distance with their dogs, watching and marking birds. And it's all one big team effort.
Mm.
But the whole day is choreographed with this pace, and these pauses. Like around 11 o'clock, they got what they call this tradition called the 11s. And you convened at a hall or at the tailgate and you take a break. You light cigars, smoke them if you got them. You a little slow gin, which is a kind of a berry infused 30% alcohol gin drink. Maybe throw some champagne and call it a slow gasm. And cookies and tarts and maybe a sandwich, just a light snack, just a
Mm.
little ounce or two of drink to take the edge off. And then you progress on. Then comes lunch. Now lunch is you walk into an area and there's a big roaring fire and homemade game pie and tarts and breads and cheeses and all this good food. It's kind of hard to go back out in that cold weather when you're sitting around that roaring fire having a good time and eat, but you do because you still got 2 or 3 more passes. But then But then in between, okay, just you get to your peg and there's a pause. It takes 10, 15, 20 minutes, and you're watching this whole thing unfold as the beaters are getting together, and you're watching birds starting to roll up ahead of you, and you're seeing all the beaters form a line and get into a certain position just to perfectly push these birds over you. And then you shoot, pow, 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 you quick as you can sometimes, for quick as you can with a two shooter. Boom, 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 boom. And then it's over, and then there's another pause as everybody's picking up and getting the birds and getting this. Then you get on the truck and you drive a little bit, and you're chit-chatting and talking and carrying on about that hunt. And at the end of the day, it's just the actual trigger pulls and the shooting part was just a very small part of the overall
Mm,
total experience. It was just an amazing thing. I would definitely like to do it again.
mm. Yeah, it sounds. Yeah, I like the pageantry of a proper day of
Pageantry.
upland hunting. Never experienced it to that degree, but like my buddy that invited me to come to Amarillo, he's like now, and I've hunted birds with him in Argentina. And that was just after a red stag hunt. We just had a day where we were all tagged out, and so we did an upland hunt for perdees is what they were. Yeah, perdees, I think, and like a bird that was a little bit bigger than a quail, not quite as big as a pheasant. And then him and I, out of the 8 times I've been to South Africa, this guy, my buddy Daniel and I, he's the only one that's ever wanted to go bird hunting over there with me. So we
Hmm.
did a day of hunting gray winged partridge over Irish setters in
Ooh,
the
yeah.
foothills. Oh, it was amazing. And then we did a goose slash what was really turned into a rock pigeon hunt. And we shot some Egyptian geese that came into this pond as well. So he's like, I didn't even have to ask. I was like, I knew not to show up without anything other than over under, right? Or a side by side. If I had taken my duck gun out, he'd been like, "Are you crazy? We're gentlemen here. What are you doing?"
It's funny you say that because one time, the first time I ever talked to somebody, it must have been 15 years ago about driven. They were trying to talk me into coming over and shoot driven. 15 years ago, I just wasn't ready for it. And we were talking, and he just about had me hanging on a cliff. And I said, "Well, do I have to wear a tie?" And he said, "Well, of course you got to wear a tie. We're not bloody savages."
Yeah.
But we actually do hunts. One of our top hunts right now. It's not Argentina, it's not Mexico, but boys, tertiary type hunt is South Africa. And the hunt, a lot of our clients that are going over and shooting plains game or shooting hunts and just want to add a few days of birds, we'll do 3 to 5 days. But every year we organize a team of six or more, and we do a 10-day, 9 to 10 day, three province, 4 to 5 stop tour. And we start a couple of hours out of Joburg,
Mm.
and we hunt Mpumalanga Free State and KwaZulu Natal provinces. We shoot decoying ducks and geese, pass shoot ducks and geese, doves, upland birds with bird dogs. The Franklins. Sometimes the guinea fowl, driven guinea fowl, if they'll cooperate for that. And finally, as we end up the last few days, we're spotting stalking these handful of birds like the white-backed duck or the pygmy goose or something like Hottentot teal that guys
Mm.
just want to collect. And it's just such an immersive experience. And the fact that you're so varied and diverse in doing this stuff, it's just bam, 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 bam. It's just run and go, and it's a heck of it. South Africa's amazing, but you can tell when you hunt places like that, like you're talking about shooting the perdiz, which is actually a yellow tinamou, the perdiz down in Argentina. Well, man, that more than anything else in Argentina reflects their ancestry.
Mm.
When those Europeans, those Italians, and the Spaniards came over to Argentina, they brought their bird dogs and they brought those bird hunting traditions. When you go to South Africa, it was once formerly a part of the British colonial empire, and a lot of the way they approach duck hunting, pass shooting, or driven, it reflects that tradition going all the way back to the UK.
Oh, we'll
And
tell you, we didn't have any duck or goose decoys when we were hunting that pond. We're just
no.
they're just coming in, and I think maybe they even baited it. I don't remember. I don't even think it's illegal in a lot of places, like places that you've hunted all over the
It's
world.
not legal in the UK to feed ducks.
No,
They feed ducks. They shoot them by moonlight. They shoot them at
yeah.
night.
It's so foreign to us in our 6 bird limit here. But and this is a question that I have for you, and my own personal perspective is that this is the reason why I think it doesn't matter that they don't have bag limits is because there's not enough hunting pressure. Like
No.
my buddy or my PH Carl was like, yeah, you're like probably one of three groups that will shoot any birds whatsoever this entire 6 month hunting season. It's like
That's
there's
right.
just nobody wants to do it. And he's like, and I promise you, there's very few South Africans that are like, let's go duck hunting. So
None of them. No,
yeah.
no, no, very, very few. They're mostly into the partridge and the birds like that. A few
Mm-hmm.
of them will, but most of it is foreigners that come over to partake. And on our trip, we
It's
do
the
use
same thing in
decoys. In
Mexico or
fact, I got the
Argentina, though,
guys
right?
using it is. Well, yeah, I think
I
you're
mean,
right. I
the
think you're
locals
right.
don't
Very few
really do it.
locals.
Yeah.
If they do it, it's a meat run. Like I used to know some of our guide staff up in northern Argentina. It was 4 or 5 brothers, a sister I never met, a granddad, a dad, and a and an uncle, and they would go out during rice season. Now, whether or not there was a season, I have no idea. I didn't really get a straight answer on that
Mm.
part. But you know, it's cultivating rice, and there's 2 times a year, like when you're seeding the rice and you just hydrate it so it'll sprout. The birds get in there and depredate the crops, and then when the rice starts to flag, um, and it's heavy laden, but it's not quite dry enough to the ducks get in there and swarm it. And they would be invited by farmers, and they would show me pictures of substantial bags. But what was so interesting with that particular family is always the pictures they showed me. It was all drakes, Drake rosy bills only, the big, fat, mallard-sized duck, and always it might be 100 ducks laid out, but they were fully plucked, everything but the head and neck. That's how I knew what they
Uh,
were. Fully
uh,
plucked bird because it was a meat run for them. They like to eat it.
yeah.
They were hunting to eat. And that's the way most of the hunting is, local hunting is down in Argentina,
Uh,
unless you start getting into the guys that are shooting partridge. I'll tell you
yeah.
something else we did last year over in the UK. Well, about an 8 or 9 day introduction, let's call it. And the driven woodcock was a huge surprise, but we flighted geese under the moonlight. We went and shot punt
What
guns.
does flighted mean?
That's just what they call it. When it's like the way we hunted those birds. We went up into an agricultural feeding area, and near the bay, near I'd say a mile or so from the ocean where the birds would roost, the pink-footed geese would roost. That was the last goose species on Earth, common though it is, that I needed to harvest.
Wow.
And so we coordinated it with a full moon. He said, "Oh, you've got to come over and do it the real way, the proper way." And it was so crazy. Our guide's name was Leroy. Leroy. I didn't expect a big English guy to be named Leroy. And so anyway, we go and we get there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It gets dark around 4:45, and about 8 o'clock, you can see the horizon. It's so clear, the moon's so full, and had not seen a goose. And he elbowed me and said, "Be patient, they're coming." He said the tide started coming in about 45 minutes ago. And once it covers up all the mud flats and islands out there, they'll start flying in to eat. And I'm staring downwind, and I can see, it feels like I can see a mile away in that clear wind. And all of a sudden I heard something, blah, 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 blah. Sounded vaguely like a speckle belly, but I couldn't see them. And when I realized, when I could see what I could hear, they kept getting closer and closer. And when I could see them with my naked eye, they were just dark shadows against the starlight sky. They were probably 40 yards. They were already locked up and waffling, and boom, boom, they were right on top of us. It's amazing how easily I mean, you could see the shoot.
Yeah.
And they had dogs run out there and grab them up and bring them back. And we did that for a couple of nights. And in the mornings, totally a totally different experience. In the early mornings, we would go out and cross the levee and go off into this marsh area. And it was just real deep cuts where tide or water or ditches or something had run. And it was all just shallow cover, like what they called heath. And we just kind of took a seat down, and where just this much of your head is showing above the heath, and pass shot.
Huh.
And I was every bit glad that I had brought full chokes because the birds were tall.
Yeah.
And so it was it's an amazing experience. It was, and then we shot punt guns. That was a riot.
Huh.
And on the last day I was there, he said, "Do you want to go deer hunting?" I said, "What kind of deer?" He said, "Well, we got a deer called a muntjac, and we got deer called Chinese water deer." Well, both of those are tiny, tiny, tiny little birds.
Or
Excuse
deer,
me,
yeah.
tiny, tiny little deer.
They're the ones with the fangs.
They are the Chinese water deer. It's like back in the day, some estates introduced them, or zoos, or somebody introduced these
Yeah.
birds, and I keep saying birds, 'cause, I've got bird on the brain, but these deer, and they escaped and took over the world. So we go out to this massive 3 or 4 section cut barley field, cut wheat field, something stubble, and he stops and I said, "Is this it?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "What are we waiting on them to come out?" He said, "No, they're all out here." And he pulled out an little infrared scope and started. He said, "One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine." He said, "There's about 100 out here laying." I said, "Get out of here." The stubble's like a foot tall. And he handed it to me, and I started looking. I see all these little white dots coming up. He said, "That's them. They're just laying
Mm.
down." And they're tiny. Cable, they can't weigh 15 pounds.
Yeah.
And so we get out and start kind of walking around and waiting on one to stand up and do this and do that. And they're judging them by these teeth coming down, how far down below the jaw line they come. So I got my Chinese water deer. Come to find out, there's more, way more Chinese water deer in the United Kingdom than there is in their home range of China and Korea to this day.
Mm.
But I did not get the muntjac. The muntjac is another little tiny deer that has little bitty razor sharp teeth and little bitty antlers. And today, this recent trip, we had a day off the last day. In fact, I stayed a day later to do it, and we stalked around that massive 25,000 acre estate and got to hunt muntjac. And I finally got my muntjac. And that's a
Oh
cool
yeah.
little deer. So get a
Awesome.
little bit of both worlds by coming over there to hunt.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so there's your recent UK experiences, which is very cool. I mean, I've never even thought about because obviously it's illegal here, but shooting waterfowl over a full moon,
Can
pretty
you
cool.
imagine?
You use
Oh,
decoys
it
for
was
that too?
amazing. Yeah, they had decoys out.
Mm.
We used decoys and they just came in lickety split. But again, even though there was no bag limits, they stopped at 4. And I
Mm.
asked him, I said, "Leroy, is there bag limits?" He goes, "No, there's no bag limits." I said, "So why do we stop at 4?" And he shrugged and says, "Well, how many do you want to shoot?" Well, let me tell you what, after lugging 4 Canada goose sized gray lags across a muddy bean field back of the truck, 4. I didn't want a single more goose to have to lug out than 4.
So, do you take your own equipment, shells and shotguns to most of these
Sometimes,
hunts?
sometimes I do. On this particular hunt, you really need about 6 to 7 weeks, I think, to import your own firearm to the United Kingdom. And did not have time because of the late start. I ran the clock. I couldn't do it. Last year I did. Now here's the deal of is you can use semi-automatic shotguns in the United Kingdom. You can get a permit to use them, but one, most of the traditional hunts over there, I do not think they would have let me bring a. In fact, I'm certain they would not have let me use a semi-automatic shotgun on the Holcomb estate. It had to have been a
Mm.
two-shooter. You're gonna like this story. Uh, so I brought the Benelli 828, and I love that gun. I like for an over and under shotgun. It's good. The one I've got has got a steel receiver. It's got 30 to 32 inch chokes. It's a heavy gun. You don't want to walk 20 miles with it, but I will.
Mm.
It shoots perfectly, low recoil. I love, love, love that shotgun. So last year I did bring my own shotgun. This year I did not, and no problem. We're gonna loan you some guns. And I got there this morning, and as we were leaving, I was helping load the truck, and one of the British hosts said, "Oh, I've got this gun right here. It's a let me think. It was a Stephen Grant and Company shotgun built in
Oh my gosh.
1890." And I did not think to ask enough questions at that point. But thank you very much. So I go out and I get to my peg, and you leave the guns cased up, and it's a beautiful case, sheet black, and I pull out this gun, and it's this Mona Lisa of a shotgun, 1890, not I mean, looks beautiful. It's immaculate. It's a side by side, straight English stock, double trigger. Everything I dislike in a shotgun. And light, man. It's got a 20, and think about it, those older shotguns
Thump
had
you.
lighter barrels and and shorter lengths, and they don't take heavy loads because they're old. You don't want to beat them up too bad. So 28 grams of, I guess that was fives or sixes we were shooting, and no idea what choke it had. And
Yeah.
but it was, somebody said, well, what was it like shooting that gun? I said, well, it fit the bill. It's perfect. No telling how many driven hunts that gun had been on, but I don't like straight English stock. Can't hold it good with a bum hand, and had never shot the gun anyway. Don't like double trigger fingers, but can shoot them with this old clumsy finger. I pulled trigger with my old middle finger, and swinging that gun is compared to shooting Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 or the Benelli 828 or the for that matter the any other gun I've ever shot. The best I could describe it, Cable. It was like if I tried to shoulder a banjo and swing it. It looked the part, son. It looked the
Oh,
part.
nostalgia has its drawbacks, I
It
guess.
has its drawback. But again, remember, it's not about the number of birds you get.
Yeah.
And finally, after about push number, there was one, I don't know what happened. There was one drive I couldn't miss. I put on a shooting clinic. All the rest of them, I was humbled beyond humbled, like I had
Mhm.
never shouldered and shot a gun before. And finally, I asked the guy, I said, what chokes are in this gun? He says, oh, they're probably quarter choke, improved cylinder. Well, that's okay, so I don't need to be shooting to have proper form. I don't need to be shooting 15, 20 yarders, but then I've got an improved cylinder choke that really don't like 50 yarders.
Yeah.
So go figure. It was a fun day. Loved it. Wouldn't swap it for the world. Next year I'm bringing my own shotgun,
Yeah.
guaranteed. But anyway.
Mhm.
So to your point though, when I go to Argentina, some lodges in Mexico, that's a drill. South Africa. Heck, I took shotguns to Pakistan the time I went, and it was as easy getting guns with the right paperwork. It was easy getting shotguns into Pakistan as it was to Saskatchewan. You
Oh,
know,
Canada's a pain in the rear. I am not a fan of
I
that.
don't think so. I don't think so. Unless you go through Toronto, then all bets are off. But
Oh,
but
well,
anywhere
there's the
else I've
problem.
been,
That's where I went through when
oh,
I went moose hunting in October and took a 300 Win Mag, and it's just it's not that you have to have all of this paperwork done ahead of time like you do for South Africa or the UK. It's that you better have like 4 hours blocked off before your next flight because you have to exit security and jump through all these hoops, and I mean, it takes forever. My buddy and I were like, gosh, dang, we had like a 5 hour layover, and we made it to the gate with like 45 minutes to spare.
and you were lucky because the times I've been the one and only time I came through Toronto, I had 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
On day one, and I missed my flight. And
Because you had a gun.
I sat there and looked at that freaking agent behind glass stare at me, expressionless, while he ate a bologna sandwich as slow as a human being can eat a bologna sandwich,
Oh
knowing
yeah.
I was on the clock. I missed my flight completely, and by the time he realized we'd missed our flight, started being friendly, I couldn't speak. I was so angry. I couldn't say a word. I came back the next day 4 hours in advance, and we just made the flight lickety split. I
Yeah.
would tell anybody listening that's going to Canada, anywhere in Canada, do not go through Toronto by air or by land. Do not go through Toronto.
Yeah.
Are you aware? Are you keeping up with all this talk about Alberta succeeding in
About what?
Canada? Alberta
Oh
had
yeah,
it.
I
Yeah,
would love to have them. I don't like.
is looking to
It's a
pitch
big
it
joke, right? Trump's like, we'll just make you the 51st state. All the liberals
now.
got all butthurt, like, oh, Trump's going to take over Canada. Listen, we don't want Canada. We don't want
No,
all their liberal voters. Yeah,
no,
we'll take Alberta. Yeah, if Alberta want to
man.
comes over, we'll take
Alberta's
Alberta.
not going to join the states, but
No.
they are. I think, in as much as humanly possible, every Albertan I know is going to bail on Canada because of their politics, and those politics are reflected when you start talking Toronto and to an extent Quebec.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what the problem is, and I saw it firsthand in Toronto. Like you import the third world, you lose your country. You don't. These people are not coming to assimilate and to make your country better. They're coming to take from your country and try to make you adopt their customs.
Well, why
No,
is that, Cable? Why is that? Because it's
I don't
like
know.
we had that conversation in the UK. Boy, you want to talk about somebody having a problem with
Oh yeah, but
some of that kind of stuff. But it's like I said, it's like here I am coming to hunt one day in the United Kingdom, and I'm assimilating. I've got on the flat top, I've got on the
right.
plus fours and the sweaters and the tie. I want to look the part. And if I were going to move to England, and I'm not, but if I were, I would assimilate.
Hmm.
I
Right.
mean, America's history is a melting pot of people that came from all over the world, pledged allegiance, and assimilated as Americans. That ain't the way they play today.
Mm-mm. No, my gosh, no. It's there. It's it's the same thing with what's going on in Minnesota with the Somalians, like
Oh,
the huge fraud. Tim Waltz responsible for losing somehow $9 billion worth of taxpayers' dollars that were sent to Somalia and or given to Somalian immigrants. 40% of those Somalians are on uh, welfare.
hmm.
Like if you're going to come here and immigrate, the first thing that you should be disqualified from is receiving any government assistance. That's not the American dream. And we're not here to subsidize the third world. I'm sorry, I don't care. I'm America first, Americans first. If you want to come here and reap the benefits of our amazing country, great. Do it the right way. Assimilate. Get a job.
Get what is that? What are those saying? Give us you're tired, you're weary, you're poor, you're downtrodden. I'm all
Yeah.
about it. I
It's
think it's the American thing to do. I think it's the Christian thing to do. With the presumption you're going to come and assimilate and be a productive American.
right, right.
You
Yeah,
know.
that's not what they're doing though. So going back in time, Ramsey, tell us a little bit about yourself as far as your background and how you ended up chasing ducks and geese all over the world.
Gosh, that's a long story. I'll do the best I can.
Yeah, well, give us the
I
abbreviated version.
born and raised in Mississippi. Born and raised in Mississippi, and small game hunter, deer hunter, and went down to your neck of the woods. Went way the heck down, 30 miles, 40 miles north of the Mexican border in college. Thought I wanted to be a white-tailed deer biologist. Worked on a 107,000 acre ranch. I was majoring in wildlife, which to say wildlife forestry at Mississippi State University. Landed a job co-oping on a magnificent white-tailed deer ranch under one of the preeminent Texas white-tailed deer biologists, a man named Bob Zageland, and shot antlerless deer and planted food plots and built fences and fixed windmills and did all the stuff that job entailed. And every time the wind blew, not every time we dropped a disc, the doves come flocking in. And every time we walked around, there were quail galore. And later in the fall, every time the wind blew from the north, those stock tanks just covered up with ducks, and it
Uh-huh.
just it just it sparked something. It just sparked something. And by the time I came back after 2 semesters down there, I never looked back. I was just, it connected me with my upbringing, my grandfather going out morning dove hunting with him, and he was a big duck hunter until he aged out before my time. And it did something, and I just became kind of sort of obsessed more with that. And of course, shooting all those deer as a job description. I didn't come back wanting to shoot a whole lot of deer for a spell, and
Hmm.
but I got into that got into bird hunting big time, and then as I got older, got a little bit later into it, I just realized the world is one heck of a lot bigger than our own backyards. And one of the first away from Mississippi hunts I ever did was, again, I went down to Texas back in the heyday of the Katy Prairie,
Oh yeah.
and shot snow geese, and the limit was 5. And on the very, very, very best of days, you got all 5 for everybody in your hunt, but it didn't matter. It was just great to be under those clouds of white birds and speckled bellies and blue geese. And first one thing and another, but break, got a real job out of college, had a little bit of money, wanted to go shoot migrator geese up in Canada, booked a disaster of a hunt in 1998 that started with a guide showing up an hour and a half, 2 hours late, so inebriated he couldn't stand up straight. And the week went
Oh
downhill
wow.
from there. Um, and the agent that booked that trip just wouldn't make good on it. And I decided I needed, I spent way too much money and time doing something like this. So I started doing a little research. The internet wasn't then what it is now.
Yeah.
Met a guy in Alberta and took some friends, took some more, had a great time. And the third year I was up there, he said, "Man, I want you to be my booking agent." I said, "What the heck's a booking agent? I'm a forester, U.S. Department of Agriculture."
Uh-huh.
And he kind of explained how it worked. And so we built a little website, GetDucks.com. And there was one product, Alberta. Well, there were actually two products. There was Alberta and there was consulting.
Uh-huh.
And because I was practicing consulting, and really and truly, really, never found my bearings, boy, doing wildlife habitat consulting. It seemed like back in the day, either I wasn't any good at finding paying clients, or there wasn't a market for it then that it was now. But there was this program called what was that? What was that? It was conservation easements.
Mm-hmm.
And I started putting together in my spare time. I started putting together these baseline reports for conservation easements, and then ended up about 16 years, 15, 16 years in my federal government career, knocking on my supervisor's door and saying, "I'm out of here." And he goes, "What do you mean you're out of here? It's 4:30. It ain't five." And I go, "I quit. What do you need from me?" And jumping out on my own. And that's when, going from 40 hours in my spare time to 120 hours a week. Um, that's when it really started kicking off, never dreaming at the time it would turn into what it did.
So you are a diehard waterfowler. Would you say that you're like a tour guide most of the time, or
Yeah, a broker, a tour guide,
uh-huh.
pointing people in the right direction to go. We kind of built a reputation on having been there, done that, in as much as humanly possible. Working in good faith, putting boots on the ground. Uh, we've been there. For example, you're talking about going to Argentina. We do have some working relationships with big game outfitters, but we don't really stay in that lane. We stay in our lane, which is wing shooting, primarily waterfowl, but also doves and pigeons and things of that nature. And after all these years, I've got a couple of outfits I've worked with for 18 years now.
Mm.
18 years,
Mm-hmm.
proven reputation. I've got a couple of newer ones that we've gone out and found, but over the past 25 years, Cable, I will go May, June, sometimes into July. I may end up spending 5 to 10 weeks down in Argentina, jumping around and hosting groups and seeing my lodges and then always going out and on invites to visit other lodges and just see and gain a context. Because, like I would say, I talked to a man yesterday that been invited to go down there this year, not through us, but through somebody else, and that's fine because we're not the only person down there. But he's like it's like I told him. I said I can't speak personally to this lodge that you're going to. They've invited us to come before, and just hadn't made it down there to see them. But after 20 something years. I can say this, all but the bottom rung outfitters probably better than most of us in Mississippi or Texas are used to. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
little bit step up in wing shooting opportunity. But at the same time, we're looking for something real specific, real distinct. What I call a real duck hunt for real American duck hunters. A certain shooting experience, which is not probably not all that with regards to luxury lodging. I de-emphasize that and instead for high quality wing shooting is what we want,
Mm-hmm.
and a proven package, and that's just kind of it's what fits my wheelhouse. It's like what strikes me hard based on my experiences, and in over 25 years, I haven't seen all the lodges, but I've seen most of them, and I'm not comparing them to Mississippi and Arkansas. I'm comparing them to all those Argentina lodges I've been to.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's real easy to show up, especially after 25 years in this business, having done this. It'd be too easy to show up and have a great time and not realize unless you've been down there, compared it, and gotten deep into the bushes. It'd be what I'm trying to say is it'd be pretty darn easy to have a duck hole that you set aside and treated right and did all this and did all that to show somebody like me a great time. but really and truly, the operation is not good.
Hmm.
Been there, done that, seen it a million times. And and that's why I spend as much time back in the kitchens and out in the garage with the bird boys and stuff like that, just networking around and just getting a real good feel for what's going on, you
Hmm.
know. But anyway,
Yeah. Well,
that's
I haven't put together any bird hunting trips, but I kind of do the same thing. I take a group to Africa every summer, and going for in March will be round two for Argentina for red stag,
hmm.
and it's people
You
want to
hunt with a
hunt.
great outfitter. You hunt with one of the best outfitters for red stag down there. I know him really well.
Oh yeah,
Alvaro. Yeah,
oh yeah,
I
yeah,
know him very well.
yeah,
He is a top-notch outfitter. And the few people that have called and asked me for a referral, they want to come shoot red stag while they're down there shooting birds. I'm always going to send them to the same guy you go to. He's top-notch.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to that, and mix in the perdees too if you tag out on your red stag, and nice, nice lodging and great food, professional chef, all that stuff. And you just have to know, like, what if it's younger guys? Maybe they don't have as much expendable income. Maybe we slum a little bit on, like, we don't have to have the best lodging and food, but
Hmm.
we want the hunt to be, you know. But older guys, I've found out, my age and up, like, no, we're not going to Argentina to slum. We have the money, and I mean, we don't want to go nuts, but we're willing to pay a little bit more for the accommodations.
That's right. But not everybody wants to go to the creme de la creme. It's been my
Oh, for
experience
sure.
that it's so many two things I'll say it two different ways. On this side of the coin, flip it over to the other side of the coin. First side of the coin, when clients call me and their first serious line of questioning is about the lodging and the accommodations and the wine list, I know they're probably not my client.
Hmm.
Because that's my clients are calling wanting a serious duck hunt. On the other hand, um, some of the lodges I've met that really push the lodging and accommodations, it's probably all hat and no cattle.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
attracting that client that wants to go down there and smoke fat cigars, eat edible art type desserts,
Hmm.
walk around the lap of luxury and go out and pull the trigger a few times.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just I'm not that's too far to go to sit in a slum.
Yeah.
But if you come to my camp house, we're going to eat fried pork chops and collard greens and cornbread and red beans and rice and just good old soul food and just and stay in a Mississippi duck camp type experience.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not a five-star kind of guy.
If you
And
come to my deer lease, you know what you're gonna get? You're gonna get meat on a open fire, and I might put a can of beans on there, but mostly you're just gonna get meat.
yeah,
That's
but
it.
I'm
I
hey,
mean, like,
let's do it,
there
man.
ain't no collard greens coming at you and Cable's duck camp, but or deer camp.
I met a client one time many years ago, and it was a very definitive moment as I was getting started. I had just left federal government. I was, pushing some hunts, and I was working with a five-star type accommodation place at the time. And this guy come in and hand me a business card, and man, I flew right into five-star. And he listened very politely. He said, "Whoa, boy," it's like he's trying to stop a horse. Like, "Whoa, whoa, stop, stop." He said, "Look, man, I come by to see you because I talk to some boys that know you and think a lot of you." He said, "But if I want all that shit, I'll take my wife to Italy."
Mm,
He said, "I've got one of the best leases around." He said, "But if you come to my camp house," he said it's a 10 by 70 mobile home my granddaddy put in this place. We
I love
kill
it.
ducks, but if you want a place to eat your ribeye steak, you're going to have to pull a lab off the couch." He says, "Son, send me on a real duck hunt with real duck hunters."
Hmm.
And when I realized this guy could have bought any lodge down there he wanted to, probably could have written a check for any lodge I'd ever stepped in at that point.
Hmm.
But his personal duck count, the 10 by 70 mobile home in the right location, got to pull a wet lab off the couch and sit down and eat your steak. I'm like, I'm looking at this wrong. People
Hmm.
want good, genuine experiences. It's like I travel over to the all over the world, let's say, and I'm not saying I do like Hilton. I am a Hilton Honors member, but when I go to Argentina, when I go to Azerbaijan, when I go to New Zealand, when I go to Argentina, Mexico, I don't want the Hilton experience. I want the experience the Argentina experience, the Azerbaijan experience, the New Zealand experience. When I come to Texas, I want the Texas experience, not the
Hmm.
Hilton experience. And I think there's something to be said about authenticity, just to give it context of place. But I want good hunting.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, then that's the thing. Like, I don't think anybody that I've ever taken on a hunt went into it saying, oh, I care more about the lodging than I do the hunting.
They're out there though.
Oh,
I've
yeah,
met them. Yeah, I've
yeah.
met them.
I did take my friend Glenn. I took to Alberta for a black bear hunt, and that was the first time Glenn had ever been in a tree stand. Well, it turns out Glenn didn't like tree stands, so he shot the first two bears he saw and called it good. I was like, man, I'm
Wow.
out. Yeah. I mean, Glenn's a big guy, and yeah, he was like, I'm not really into this tree stand sitting thing. So, and they weren't bad bears, but he just like, I don't have any use for being in this tree any longer than I have to. I'm like, but that was the experience that you cut short. He's like, nope, I'm gonna go sit in the box blind over all of the dead bear carcasses and look for hopefully a wolf walks by. And he's like, but
I
there's a
like bear hunting. I
yeah.
love to bear hunt. You bring up I love to bear hunt. I don't know what it is about them, but I love them.
Hmm. Oh yeah, me too. Hopefully someday a brown bear, but I've killed a handful of black bear, and I've done it all different ways. I've done it out of the tree stand in Alberta. I've done it with dogs in New Mexico, and spot and stalk in British Columbia. And I like all
My
of it. I can't tell you which one's better. They're all great.
I've shot them all from deer stands or spot and stalk, but I want to go on a hound hunt. I
Hmm.
want to go to North Carolina and hunt them with hounds. Them
Well,
boys
you
get
got them
after it, the black
700-pound
bears.
bears there.
I don't need that. That's
Uh,
funny you say that because I've got some friends and associates and clients out in North Carolina and fell down a rabbit hole a few years ago and wanted to go shoot black bear. And man, they all clammed up. I mean, they just clammed up tight. I mean, and I'm like, man, what the heck's going on? I got to talking to one of them one time, and he said, well, man, I don't have big bear. I said, I don't want to shoot a big bear. I'm not a trophy hunter. I don't want to shoot a big bear. I want to shoot a meat bear. He's what kind of meat bear? I said, I want to shoot one barely legal that I can put in a crock pot and eat. And he said, oh, well, come on over. Well, man, once the ice broke and people realized Ramsey just wants a meat bear, now the invite started
mm,
coming.
hmm.
And they are, I think they're absolutely delicious. Boy, they're delicious.
That's the one animal that when I put in the skillet or whatever, my wife's like, you're cooking bear. And that's not her favorite. She's like, but it's greasy. It is. And that doesn't
It's
mean it's
got,
bad,
I, that's what I
but
like about it. I like
she's
the
like, yeah,
fat.
yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
that's what I don't like about whitetail. I love whitetail, but when I do my whitetail, my back straps are wrapped with bacon and thick bacon at that. And then my ground is definitely got 20% beef fat or pork fat in it,
Mm,
100%. Because I think the flavor's in the fat. I think you got to have that fat. That's just my diet. But
right.
but uh, but I love the bear. In fact, I got back one bear hunt I got back from. We had trimmed off all the white fat inside, and I put it in a bunch of ice bags. And I got back home. My wife's like, "What is that?" I go, "That's bear fat." She goes, "What are you gonna do with that?" I said, "I'm gonna render it into grease." And boy, now
Uh-huh.
look, man, she started getting territorial over that kitchen because I do make a
Uh-huh.
mess. And she's like, "Well, how do you do that?" I said, well, "I'm gonna put it in a crock pot and heat it up, and just it renders out. I'm gonna drain it. I put it in jars." And I woke up the next day, and she'd taken over that job out in the garage. And who knew we had a little Dotson we called Frankie, a little Frankie dog. That dog just about tore the kitchen door down trying to get out to that garage. Who knew that dog loved bear grease? And anytime I was
Uh,
cooking with bear grease, that dog was standing on my feet
mm.
slobbering. But anyway, I love to shoot bears.
Yeah, me too. So you coined the phrase "it's duck season somewhere." For that, and truly, somewhere it is duck season. What would you say is? I mean, everybody knows about Mexico and Argentina. If you're a passionate waterfowler, you've probably entertained the idea of going to the East Coast or Alaska for sea ducks at some point. What's like an outside of the box waterfowler's destination hunt that's a must do that a lot of people don't know about?
That's a great question. And I'll keep it in North America for starts. 'Cause I think that's the easier thing to do. And I think for most of us, I'm from Mississippi, you're from Texas. Let's just say from 42 of the 49 states. For most of us, I think going on a sea duck hunt
Mm.
would be the first rational move to think outside the box. Most of us are shooting puddle ducks, divers, geese. We're not hunting big water. We're not hunting sea ducks. We're not hunting scoters or longtails or eiders. We're not hunting like you hunt them out of layout boats or big stationary
How
boats.
PC of you to call them longtails. We call them old squaws on this show.
I still sometimes call them old squaws, but they're
And they're still the Washington Redskins, if anyone's asking.
yeah. I'm not all PC, but it's a but they are I think that to go out and shoot those birds, it's going to be unlike any experience you've ever been on as a duck and goose hunter. Going out on that really big, dangerous, cold water and inhospitable environment to shoot a really cool bird. I
See,
love
we
shooting
are
the eiders, the
degenerates. You just
scoters.
basically described something a
Uh,
degenerate would do and call it fun. Like, let's go
oh
do something
gosh,
kind of
yeah,
dangerous and be really cold and miserable and call it a
yeah,
good time. And it is. I
absolutely. It
went on
is a
my
good
first sea
time.
duck hunt last year, Ramsey, and you could literally look at Boston. We were hunting in Boston Harbor, and I could
Absolutely.
see the Boston skyline right there. I'm like, that is where they dumped the tee, and I'm hunting sea ducks right here. Super cool, minus the fact that their governor's a moron, and I had to take a pump shotgun with me because you can't take a
Isn't that
semi-auto. I'm like,
crazy?
what
I
a
know, but
moron.
but but it is. It's
But the hunt was awesome, and we did it out of layout boats one day, and then the next day we did kind of a collector's hunt for black duck, something we can't get in Texas really. So we went to the marsh, and then the third day we went back to the ocean and we hunted off the jetties,
oh
and
yeah.
and I mean, it was so cool. Scoters,
It's
I
so
can't believe
different,
how
so
big
good,
those
and the
eiders are.
species, all the eiders are ginormous.
Mm,
But I love it. Really and truly, you're talking about being in that layout boat on that big water, or just getting there. Sometimes it's so humbling.
mm,
I mean, it's just like when you start hunting sea ducks. Boy, go to St. Paul Island and hunt king eiders and be out in a relatively small boat in relatively large swells and waves, or a 40-mile-an-hour north wind, and you're land bound watching 20-foot breakers and feeling pins and needles on your cheek as the wind's cutting through it. And I've just never felt so small relative to the universe
mm.
as hunting something like that. And I like that feeling. That's one thing about the UK, and I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but to say that, it kept getting pushed to the back end, because what I really like, and it's becoming so hard to find in this world today, is just truly wild places.
Mhm.
Really uncharted and wild places. It's getting so hard to find something like that. And so that's my first inclination. We went to Mongolia, and don't sell that hunt anymore. It's just so hit or miss and stuff like that. But to go somewhere as wild and remote, and oh, you don't go there for the culinary food or for the lodging or for anything else. You go because it's wild and it's remote, and you drive 6 hours down these two tire tracks cutting through the taiga and stay in a small, I don't know, 10 foot or 5 foot radius gur, felt wall gur, and with a little. I mean, it's just so interesting to get that far off
Mm.
the grid.
Absolutely. Yeah, I highly recommend Sea Duck Hunt. I already have booked to take a group back in 2026. That was like, wow. And I didn't, and I've said this on the show, but I had this misconception. And I think it's because most of the people posting on social media, outfitters that do these sea duck hunts, they're filming with their cell phone. And so it looks like the ducks, you're just they're coming over decoys, but it looks like you're shooting them from 60 yards away. Dude, I
Hmm.
mean, these eiders were landing on top of my layout boat.
Oh yeah,
So stupid. And I'm like,
yeah.
Randy, why are these birds so dumb? I wasn't expecting this. They're just decoying right in my face all day. He goes, yeah, that's what they do. And they don't get hunted very hard because this is a very gear intensive sport. He's like, there's about
That's
four of
right.
us in Boston that actually love it enough to do it full time. And so yeah,
That's
they
right.
don't get a lot of pressure. He's like, and we don't take we only take out of staters because we don't want to give up our spots. He's like, if a local
No,
guy calls me, I just don't even take them.
I get it. I hunt with I hunt sea ducks, believe it or not. I haven't always done it, but for the last 5 years, I hunt everything with a 28 gauge. And it just adds a whole new dimension. Last year I got to do something. Went up there to Long Point, Ontario, and scratched a true bucket list. I had shot layout boat for sea ducks and divers before, but never proper. I went up there and hunted with the Jaden Banks, and it one of the most memorable hunts. The water wasn't but 6 foot. It was a Great Lake type working, not saline, but hit it right when the scaup, the greater scaup, and the
Mm-hmm.
redheads were in, and it was magnificent. The birds were coming in just like I say. It's so funny because you're in this layout boat, this layout, and you're looking just right at your eyeball level with the decoy, and the
Mm-hmm.
birds come in right to you, right there, and just present themselves, and it was insanely good. Very addictive to be that close to birds like that.
Yeah, yeah. On such big water is
Mhm.
pretty neat. Um, so take us back. How old are you?
I turned 60 in May.
Okay. So 16 years older than me. You were there for the lead shot days.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was the real difference? And my only experience is shooting cranes, and I don't know why it's legal to shoot cranes with lead shot, but you can't shoot geese with lead shot in the same field. Like if you have a feed, and this is common in West Texas in the Panhandle, we've got cacklers and we've got cranes in this field. Bring steel shot. The outfitter says we've only got cranes in this field. Bring lead shot.
Mhm.
Okay, well we're shooting cranes with pheasant. With Kent is our sponsor. Worked with Kent and that's because I started shooting Kent as. Here's an interesting side note for you. I'm bartending in college when I'm really getting into duck hunting, and everyone buys Winchester experts. Well, they're not very effective, and there was a reason why they were $7.99 a box or whatever they were back then. And I was like, I keep losing so many, I cripple so many birds. I was like, I'm going to try something new. Kent was like $10.99 a box, and
Mm.
so I started buying Kent. And then somehow in this crazy life, I ended up doing this for a living and have been working with Kent, who I was already shooting anyway and was a big fan of. I've been working with Kent for like a decade. But we were shooting these freaking cranes with pheasant loads, 6 shot, 2 3/4 inch, and they're just crumpling. These cranes
Mhm.
are. And I'm like, I wonder what it was really like shooting ducks with lead shot.
It was good. It was good. And I'm no engineer. I'm no physicist, but uh, lead has got a higher specific weight
Mm. Yeah, it's denser.
than steel. It doesn't throw inherently because a lot of the lead is dropped. Even if it's chilled and rolled, it's still not perfectly spherical. When it comes out and it's rattling down the barrel real quick, it'll get little dents and dings in it, and especially the unplated. And so it throws a little bit wider pattern. And because it's heavier and higher in energy, you can use a smaller shot and a tighter choke. And it doesn't because it's heavier. It doesn't fall off on speed like steel as it gets further down away from the muzzle. And when it hits, it deforms. It's soft enough that it'll deform and transfer that energy. That's why you want, as a big game hunter, you want your bullet, your projectile to mushroom, so it's dumping that energy onto the soft tissue. Now I'll say this: um, we still shoot a lot of lead. I still shoot a lot of lead. I would dare say, as much as I hunt the United States and in some of the steel mandate countries, that I still shoot more lead at ducks in the course of a year. I understand
Mm-hmm.
last year I hunted 191 times, and most of that would have been lead in some of these countries. You go down to like I say, 5 or 10 weeks down in Argentina, so we still shoot a lot of lead. And but I'll also say this, that the technology of non-toxic shot is so much better than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And when was that? That'd have been 1989. In 1989, I was working down that Texas ranch I told you about, and I ran down to Just a little old, I'd call it a quick stop, but you could buy everything in there, and it was like an old comic book rack. You spun around. That's where all the ammo was. And I spun it around and was looking for duck loads and saw something with steel shot. I said, "What is this?" "Oh, that's that old no fangle stuff, son. You can try some if you want, but you don't have to shoot it till next year." And so I didn't buy any. But then it came out, and it was though anybody that can remember the transitioning from lead to the first iterations of steel shot, it was terrible, terrible. And
Yeah.
it's like I can remember, I've told this story before. I had at the time, I had an old 1100 shotgun that belonged to my granddaddy that I assumed would be the only shotgun I ever owned. Now I did go buy, just because I couldn't pass up on a good deal, I bought a 870 Wingmaster for 150 bucks, sold it for 200 when I needed a new textbook later, but loved
Yeah.
that shotgun. But we shot lead. And when the steel shot became to the forefront of everything, man, the first thing it did, it tore up a lot of guns. It would bulge those fixed chokes. Then you found out a lot of these older guns, these safe queens, couldn't take the pressures because you had to compensate for the lightness of steel with increased velocity, so
Right.
increased chamber pressures. And I can say now, anybody listening that's an expert on this, quote me if I'm wrong, but I'm telling you, a modified choke today is more open than a modified choke from the 70s and 80s because it's got to
Mm.
accommodate this increased pressure of these non-toxic shots. Now, having said all that, um, I predict that within, maybe not in the United States shooting sandhill cranes or doves, who knows? But I predict that within 4 or 5 years, 90% of the world is going to be non-tox. And I do honestly believe, especially shooting over wetlands, that it probably should be.
Mm.
And I do remember I took a necropsy lab one time. I was taking a waterfowl course in grad school under Rick Kaminsky, and we went over and did a necropsy lab, and he had euthanized a few wood ducks out of captivity, but one of those wood ducks, he had force ingested a single number 6 lead pellet. I don't know, a week or 10 days preceding this demonstration, and he took out these two dead ducks and passed them around. And the first was a wood duck, felt just like a wood duck in your hand. And the next one he passed around, cable, it was like a straw hat. It had no weight whatsoever.
Mm.
And the way that lead does, the way these dabblers and divers, these ducks feed is they dabble on the bottom, and they got those little lamella, those little comb-like teeth, and they're filtering out food, seeds, and crustaceans and everything. And sometimes they eat grit because it's good for their gizzard to help them digest, and they can't tell the difference in a piece of sand or gravel and a number 6 lead pellet, and it gets off in their gizzard and gums the works up so
Mm.
that nothing's coming through. And then they it's kind of like a slim fast. They're like, "Oh, I'm full. I don't need to eat." And they starve to death. And
Mm.
even back in we interviewed, there's still some ponds from back in the day, back during the canvasback wars of Texas. Meet with some biologists recently last year down in Texas. Mr. Stussenbacher says that the legacy lead in some of those Texas lakes that were really shot during market hunting is still claiming thousands, if not tens of thousands of waterfowl. I was down in
Hmm,
Argentina.
that's interesting.
Yes, I was.
Mm.
But now some of the areas, like take some of the rice fields. I know some of the research I've read and looked at from, say, some of these rice field areas in South Louisiana. The legacy lead effect is almost nil because it's been disked under and cultivated and
Mm.
cultivated and cultivated till it's sunk down enough. It's not within that profile that a duck would dabble, but it's coming. I know that.
We can still shoot, and I have done this. I don't anymore because, well, Kent makes a great steel dove load, and it just shows up on the front porch for every September 1st.
Mm-hmm.
But I hunt a lot of stock tanks for dove,
Sure.
and so many hunters do, and it's like, well, okay, the ducks are going to be on that stock tank in 3 months, so
I think non-toxic is coming, and I'll say why. In the United Kingdom, because I just
yeah,
my
I'm
fresh
for it
stop
for birds. I'm a
for everything.
completely no. I'm against it for big game hunting because I don't. And I've had Mark Olive of the Shooting Sports Foundation. What is it? SSSF? What is it?
Hmm.
NSSF. And he's like,
National Shooting Sports Foundation.
yeah, yeah. He said, we don't manage, say, black bear, for example, on a on an individual level. So if you shoot an elk and you left some lead shot fragments in the field and that bear ingested it, he's like, number one, it will have to do that so many times for it to kill it. He's like, number two, the trade off for everyone having to go shoot non toxic rifle loads is not worth it from a conservation standpoint, just because of the amount of money that is raised through Pittman Robertson dollars because of ammunition sales. And then what it would mean, he's like, and also you have to think about the non-hunters. There's more of them than there are us. So guys that have an AR or a 9mm, those are the two most popular calibers in North America. He's like,
Good
those
point.
guys go and they buy all this ammunition. Now you want to tell them they have to shoot non-toxic loads at their local gun range. Well, we know that they're going to be more expensive, and so now we're going to price all these people out, and then that's
That
less
ain't
PR
good. At
dollars,
a time we need more, not less.
right? So I mean,
But now I will
it's
say
very
this.
nuanced.
I will, as a hunter, I will say this. I went to Africa back in 2015 and called a buddy of mine that's a big game hunter over in Tanzania and everywhere else. I said, "Hey man, I'm bringing a 270, a 300. What grain, what weight should I shoot? What would be best for a one shot fits all?" And he says Barnes TTSX. I said, yeah, but I'm talking about 165 grain, 180 grain. He said Barnes TTSX. About a third, fourth time I go back and forth. He says, "Look, dude, I don't care." He said, "Shoot the Barnes TTSX, whatever does flat shoots in your rifle." Cable, man, my 270. When I was back in the late 80s, I was down in Texas and jumping around Mississippi, and but I was a deer hunter. And I've got this little Ruger M77 270, and I got into reloading hot and heavy. And there was one, I just ran a spectrum of 50 to 100 feet per second more. And I zoned into 130 grain and then jumped it up with the different speeds. And there was a 3,025 foot per second load through the chronograph and a 3,800 foot per second that kicked like a mule on steroids
Mm.
that were flat shooting. And I went to the 3,025 foot per second load, and we're talking 1987. And I've still got hundreds of that hand load. I've loaded since, and it's just a tack driver. But I went to Africa with that gun and put in that Barnes TTSX, and then and this 300 Magnum I've got, which was kind of a custom build back in the late 80s before everybody in the world built custom guns.
Right.
I found a guy to put me together a gun that built on a Remington Action that those two rifles I've hunted with since the late 80s. But I was shooting just a Remington core lock or something that was super fast
That's not a
and
good
put in a
bullet.
great. It was a great man. I tell you, I got just a lot of about 300 or 400 dead whitetails difference, but it was good for me. But I put in that Barnes TTSX, which is a solid alloy, and it was like the finger of God touched those animals. Boom,
Huh.
you're dead. Boom, you're dead. And when I got back, I have not 10 years ago, Cable. I have not recom. I zeroed in for those Barnes TTSX and hadn't touched a thing. Like I shoot them right here for whitetails or any
Hmm.
hogs or any bears or whatever for some hunt. I won't never go back to that. But what I was getting at, I'm gonna talk ducks, not and birds. I'm all about shooting. I'm all about shooting a non-tox shot. And down in Argentina, of all places, Argentina this year, a few of the provinces have mandated, two of the provinces especially have mandated non-toxic shot. And so this year, down in Argentina, knowing it was coming, I shot their first iteration of steel shot. It was a 2 3/4 inch, I'm gonna say 7/8 to 1 ounce load of steel fives, and with a modified choke at 25, 35 yards. It was lights
So this
out.
is an
It was
Argentinian
Argentina, and
manufacturer.
and and
So at least
they
they
have
have
been.
a playbook to look at all of our modern lows.
They
Just
do.
and then
Oh
they can say,
yeah,
well, let's replicate this because this is
they
effective.
do. They absolutely do. But it's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming. Back during the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, back during that event. when all the world was shut down and we were all cleaning out our garages and taking a break and watching Tiger King and kicking back, the anti-hunters of the world got busy. They
Mm.
used this Zoom feature right here and they got busy and they organized. And of all places where you have got such an abundance of habitat and birds and wetlands and a little bit of agriculture, and most of your people are living in the big cities in Argentina of all places. They actually came out in 2021 or 2 and the federal government shut a lot of those duck seasons down. And if you can imagine this, the provincial governments stuck up the middle finger and said, no, no, we're not shutting hunting season down and
Mm.
issued permits anyway. And so what's been going on since then is the they've got politician leaners their way too. So what happened is about 5 years ago, some, not all, some of these outfitters formed coalitions and began to put their time and their money into doing censusing and doing official counting. Can you imagine? I can't imagine this. We grew up in such a luxury of the North American model here in America with state and federal and university and all this interest going into wildlife conservation. That country didn't count ducks.
Oh
They
yeah.
sent they send somebody out to quote count ducks, but it might be a hired niece or somebody that
Yeah,
would just
bird
drive
boy.
around and
Yeah.
drink mate and see a few birds and they said, well, we don't have any birds. Well, they started doing rigorous censusing and they kind of coordinated it through the government who said, okay, but we're going to put government employees with you so you aren't fabricating numbers. This year in the Buenos Aires province alone, they counted 65 million ducks just in one of the six provinces down in Argentina. Let me tell you what's happened now. All six of the provinces have banded together. Uruguay is now part of this greater federation that's going, and bird hunting is going to be a thing. It's kind of hard to close season when 1/6 of your land area, 1/6 of your provinces in Argentina that has waterfowl has as many ducks as the North American continent.
That's
Kind of
insane.
tough to. It's
Yeah.
insane. But in talking to them, talking to some of their leadership, they're like, what we're going to do in some of these provinces is rather than being told by the federal government that we have to use, the antis are going to be trying to stop us other ways now. So rather than being told we're going to have to shoot non-toxic shot, we're going to volunteer to shoot it. So
Mm.
it's coming. In the UK, where they still shoot lead shot by the year 2029, I think 2029 to kickoff point, they're going to do what you're talking about doing. It's going to be 100% non-toxic shot shells and cartridges.
Mm.
100% target loads, whatever you do, it's going to be 100% non-toxic. And I talked to Gabriella Hoffman,
Oh yeah.
and
Gabby's a good
smart
friend.
smart lady, man, and so sincere and so involved with this kind of stuff here. And it may not have been the only single reason that waterfowl hunters defected. It had something to do maybe with contracting bag limits or other things. But when they incepted still shot at the time in North America that still shot was implemented, that non-toxic shot was implemented in North America, coincides on the timeline when we lost about half of duck hunters. Okay, we can't take another half cut.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I get that some of the public lands are crowded. I get that. I get that today's hunters hunt way more, better equipped to hunt longer and hunt more and are way more traveled than our ancestors were, but they're paying the same amount of money.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And political capital and political relevance is money. You know what I'm saying? You can say what you want to, but politicians respond to money. And
Oh,
right now, some of the numbers I've seen, waterfowl hunting accounts total effect $254 billion. That's a lot of money. $254 billion is a lot of money, but at the end of the day, it really ain't. I don't know that it'd make a Fortune 500 company,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's a big deal. We
Yeah.
need we need more hunters. We don't need to lose hunters for any reason.
Oh, I totally agree, especially for waterfowling, because, like I said, duck hunters are a special breed. I would argue that I don't want new hunters if they're recruited by, let's just say, this Western big game culture that's going on today. That's, and I call it the I'm a hunter but crowd. I'm a hunter, but I have a problem with. You've got a nice black bear right there behind you, a nice black bear rug. I'm a hunter, Ramsey. I like to shoot a mule deer or go elk hunting every year, but do you really need to shoot a black bear? I don't. I kind of have a
Yeah.
problem with that. Or
Do you
do
really
you
have to shoot a
really?
compound bow? Do you really
Yeah.
have to shoot a 6.5 Creedmoor? Do you really have to be different than me? Do you really
But
have to
the
wear that camo brand? Do you
yeah
really have to do it this way?
yeah. Do you
We're
really have
we're
to run
we're,
deer
we're
with
our own worst
dogs?
enemies.
Oh, for sure. But I don't want those. I do not want those people recruited into our fold because they are watering down our gene pool. They don't vote with a hunt. I'm not kidding you. They are watering down the hunting community's collective gene pool because you know what it gives, who it gives a leg to stand on? The anti-hunters. They're like, well, oh, Jimmy over here is a hunt. Says he's a hunter. He goes deer hunting, but he doesn't think that you should be using a snare. He doesn't think you should be trapping, and he wants wolves still. He thinks that the federal government's screwing up by delisting wolves. Like, no, I don't want those people because then you're
Right.
on the side of, if you are on the side of the fence with the anti-hunting community on X issue, you are not on my team. You're on
At
their team.
all.
Yeah.
It's too bad that we can't be nuanced anymore. We have to be, left or right.
True.
And so many of the topics, for example, I'm sure we all voted for the same guy, but man, okay, changes. I'll hit it from this angle. Hunting is conservation. We all see it because
Mm-hmm.
this wildlife have commodity value because I didn't make it that way, but it does. I mean, all those
Right.
ducks, all those deer, everything's got some commodity value. It affects political relevance with money being spent. For 3 years of my federal career, I worked for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and refuges, and man, I believe heart and soul in federal refuges. And I really agree. Number one, 40% of it is open for public use. We need access. Number two, there are inviolate sanctuaries that waterfowl must have to persist. They must be able to land somewhere and do ducky things without getting shot at. Period. End of
Mm-hmm.
discussion. That's just my heartfelt belief. Prove me wrong or disagree with me. I don't care. Well, in the past few years, not only are we buying duck stamps and buying licenses and spending money and doing this and doing that and buying get Pittman Robertson Act expenditures and everything else. Um, Holy cow, man. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service refuges is on the brink. They don't have budget to manage these properties for
Mm-hmm.
the benefit of waterfowl. They don't have staff. They've lost 40% of their staff in the past few years. They don't have staffing. I mean, there's some of the most incredible U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service refuges in the state of Arkansas have one person. I had a good friend of mine. He was a forester back in the day, became a manager at a big complex totaling about 60,000 acres, and they are keystone properties in the state of Mississippi. He just retired. We went fishing a few months ago, and he said, "Can you believe that with 60,000 acres, it was myself, a manager who has a whole lot of administrative stuff to do, and one equipment operator." How do you
Wow.
manage something like that? Well, hunting is conservation. So here comes Delta Waterfowl. Delta Waterfowl is going to try to restore these refuges because the federal government won't.
Mm.
So it's up to us hunters. We're digging into our pockets, our time and our money going into conservation, but now we need more. We got to do more to make it better. We've lost so much habitat value across the landscape on private land. It's nobody's business to tell a landowner how he can make a living on his property, and what he needs to do. But we're losing so much habitat for big game and for especially migratory
Mm.
birds. We can't afford to lose it on public land too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all falling on our shoulders.
Yeah.
Not the coffee drinking anti. They're
Right.
not they're
No.
not doing nothing but running their mouths. It's like somebody called me out the other day on my own page, and boy, I can't stand it when an anti comes onto my page. And but telling me, oh well, we just got rid of hound hunting in the UK, and this driven stuff you're doing is next. And I said, well, why is that? Is it because you're self-righteous?
Yeah.
Is it because you were beat up too much as a kid that you get to control somebody else? What do you do for conservation? To which he replied, well, do you want me to list it all? I go, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do want you to list it all.
It's
And
gonna
I
be a
ain't heard
short
from him.
list.
I've not heard from him since.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Nothing. They've done nothing.
They've destroyed fox hunting, much like how we started off the show with the pageantry and the tweed and everything else that's going on with your driven pheasant and woodcock hunts. That is as English a tradition as exists when it comes to hunting.
But
And
here's the inconvenient truth anti don't want to
well, they
talk
don't let them.
about.
You know, if you have foxhounds now in the UK, you have to use a cold scent. You cannot hunt fox anymore. And they're trying to make it to where you can't even do those, where you can't even take a fox
They
scent
they
in.
just so when they banned killing the fox, they called it something else, trail riding or trail blazing or
Mm,
where I can go out with my hounds and run through the countryside and jump over the fences and all right. They've just banned that.
mhm. Yeah,
Success for the fox. Well, wait a minute, wait a minute. What now? What happens to all those thousands of hounds and horses? What,
right.
what do you want to put them in your home?
Mm.
What do you do with all these thousands of horses and dogs that don't have a purpose anymore? I can't go out and gallop across the countryside with.
But I love animals so much,
I
but I don't.
destroy
I
them.
don't love them.
What about the thousands of gamekeepers and as far as the fox goes, the hunters killed a few. The fox hunters killed a few. The gamekeepers are still allowed to kill them all. Now, what's going to happen to all these foxes?
Right.
They are going to die indiscriminately.
Mhm. Yeah, no doubt. Shifting gears here, a couple more things. We've talked about the antis a little bit. You've got a video, and I have been keeping up with this, and I think it's the province of Victoria,
Oh,
Australia.
Australia.
You have a video on your website, Battleground Australia, and it's this one cute gal. There's one that I've seen most frequently, blonde haired, good looking chick, but she is on the warpath trying to get duck, of all things, duck hunting banned. And now, have they successfully banned it in Victoria?
No, they have not. They have not banned it. In fact, when we filmed that a couple of years ago, we actually went down there with a couple of scientists and thinking it was likely. I talked to some geneticists
She reminds
and
me of she's like their AOC.
oh,
Like here's a
she is their
here's a
AOC. She used to be a
bartender
stripper.
with they got some good looking, maybe chesty gal who has a pretty face, and now she's boom elected
They
politician.
used
What?
to strip, man. And
Oh, oh, you're being serious.
no, I'm serious. It's a heart attack. It's a heart
Oh,
attack, and but she's leading that party, but there was a lot of support, and when we went down there and made that video and did that, they were on the absolute brink. My buddies that work for Field and Game Australia, my friends down there were telling me, man, if you want to shoot some of these birds, the magpie goose, the Cape Barren goose, you better come on because once they kill Victoria, it's going to fall like dominoes. This is your chance. You better do it. And I said, well, if I'm going to come down there, I called Phil Lovretsky, called the guy from California that's got the museum, said, hey, would y'all like to come down there? I think Smithsonian wanted to come down there. It was too late to plan it. By the time they got on board to collect some genetics, because once they close the hunting, there's no scientific value. Let's collect what we can. And went down there to do that and to make that film and do those hunts and collect those genetics. And um, it's still touch and go. They don't have the luxury of saying, okay, well, come and hunt with us next May. They won't know until 2 or 3 weeks before their scheduled season, when or if or how many the bag limits, because they're going to be fighting tooth and nail with the anti-hunters
mm,
like they can down there. But they did have the labor union um, weigh in, and that really was the ace up the sleeve, so to speak, was when basically the largest labor union in the country said, if you close duck season, we're going on strike and
huh.
won't nothing get done.
Yeah.
And that was so far has been the ace in the sleeve. But there's I'm telling you, Cable, it's so discouraging to see this around the world. And somebody said, well, man, I live in Texas, I live in Mississippi. Who to care what happens halfway
Mm,
across? Because it's literally Australia is literally halfway across the world. It's on the backside. It's like if you dug a hole straight down. It ain't China, it's Australia. And who cares what happens there? Well, the politics of anti-hunters cable are universal.
Oh, for sure.
It is dominoes. You know, it's not just Australian anti-hunters that are doing this. It is they're all South Africa, European, Netherlands. You know, Netherlands is crazy. Let's talk about Netherlands because 7 years ago now, Netherlands was on the brink. Well, they're done. They're toast. You know, we used to run Netherlands just a few weeks here and there. It blew up about 6 years ago. Who knew? We took some writers over there. We wrote some stories, and who knew that anti-hunters read those hunting magazines? It blew up. At some point in time, Ramsey Russell GetDucks was called on the Parliament floor by the Animal Party, and
Hmm.
and they're still talking about the American that was running commercial hunts over there. But they just put it's death at a time, death at a time, death at a time, one nail at a time, death by 1,000 cuts. And what's so insane is that in the Netherlands, for example, they closed goose hunting, and so a lot of these migratory barnacle geese and gray
Well, there
lag.
must have been some scientific data to support the
Oh,
closure,
none
right?
whatsoever. No, no, this is purely. It's just when you see these anti-hunters, it's an ideological war.
Oh, yeah.
It's purely ideological. But what happened is back in the early thousands, they closed goose hunting, and a lot of the barnacles and greylags became permanent residents because Netherlands, Holland is absolutely textbook perfect. A lot of water, a lot of feed, perfect. Why migrate ever again? And so they became resident birds, and they did what resident birds in the absence of hunting do. They exploded. And at one time, oh gosh, I used to know this number. It was some astronomical amount of agricultural damage these birds are doing, something to the tune of like $80 million. And we're talking about a country that's half the size of or two-thirds the size of North Carolina.
Hmm.
80 million US dollars equivalent damage. So they began to issue depredation permits. And that's where we came
Imagine
in.
that.
That's where we came in. Is we
You
got to go
created
over
a
there and hunt them
problem
under
by
these
closing
depredation
hunting.
permits.
Who are we going to call? Oh, we're going to have to call those hunters to come fix this mess that we made.
But they don't want to hear, they don't want to be responsible because when this thing all blew up, I actually got on the phone with one writer. Um, and I did not give him permission to print this, but because we were going back and forth, I didn't trust him to print what he print. But at the same time, it's like I asked him, I said, here's what scares me is like y'all have common outbreaks of avian influenza that's being driven by these massive populations of resident birds. In comes the migrator bird that intermix with these avian influenza local birds. They fly back up to the Arctic. Avian influenza is not affected it doesn't affect just geese only. It affects everything.
Hmm.
So you're flying. So these migratory birds are going through other countries, infecting all this bird life throughout the northern hemisphere. Who's responsible for that? You are.
Hmm.
Who's writing the check for it? Not you. When a farmer's getting eat out, one time we were hunting in Holland and we'd gone shot mute swans. And we were there in the field waiting for the government inspector to show up and pace the field and sign the paperwork saying, oh, yeah, this farmer's being eat out of house and home,
Hmm.
literally being depredated. And we went hunting and we shot, I don't know, a dozen mute swans. And I was trying to lay them out and take a picture. And my host was like, no, 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 don't, not here, not here. Well, man, we're out in the country tonight, not here, I promise. We'll go back behind the barn and take a picture. We go behind the barn, we start taking pictures. And up comes this little sedan, this little lady steps out and pulls her, cinches up her little coat, starts walking. They're talking Dutch. I don't know what's going on. He's trying to stop her. And she pushes him out of the way and comes back here. And she sees those dead swans. It was like old Bugs Bunny just discombobulating. And I don't know, I don't speak Dutch, but I know when I'm being called every word in the book. And I was so shocked at what was unfolding that I didn't think to pull out my phone and film it. Oh boy, I
Hmm.
wish I'd filmed this. So they got into it. He's very calm, very demure, and he's like pop, 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 talking, and she's just losing her stuff, man. And finally, he points over behind us, and I look behind me, and he points behind us and says something, and she goes, cinches up her belt, gets back in her car, and drives away. And I said, "Oh my gosh!" He said, "I told you." I said, "What did you say to defuse that?" He says, "I pointed to the farmer's house and said." if she wants to save these swans to go write him a check
Hmm.
and reimburse him for his crop losses. Else he's going to hire us to come shoot the swans. Well, she's not going to write a check. It's
Right.
okay for me and you to lose money for her social conscience, but she's
Hmm.
not going to put her money where her mouth
They
is, just
never
like
do, Ramsey. They
they
never do.
never do. But we hunters do.
Yep. Yep. Gladly, we do it gladly. As we are wrapping things up here, I got to ask you: you've shot, so you've shot every goose species in the world.
Yes,
Have you shot?
every legal goose species. Yeah.
What about ducks?
You know, I've shot all the ones I can get to right now that I know to be legal. Yeah,
Okay.
I can't. There may be a few out there, but a lot of them are protected or in areas that are inaccessible.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Okay.
and if I ever do find access, for example, if I ever do find access to say, I know there's parts of Russia that would have falcated or buccal teal, and if I ever do gain an inroad to there, I just need to confirm and double check that everything's legal.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I mean, the crazy thing about it is I'm just a duck hunter. Ask me my favorite bird, the next one over the decoys.
Yeah. What
Ask
is
me to
it?
be well, the next one over the decoys. If I go out if I go out tomorrow and shoot a limited shovelers, I'm fine. But really and truly now, if I had my druthers, if I wanted to shoot one more duck species on Earth for the rest of my life, it'd probably be a mallard duck.
Uh-huh.
I love mallards.
What is the best tasting duck?
That's a good question. I've eaten some Pacific Brant that's real good. Some Rosy Bill poachers that have been in ag are real good. I know out on the West Coast, man, you get into those widgeons and pintails that have been feeding green wing teal universally, but the widgeons and pintails have been feeding on that rice out in California is real good. I like a good fat duck. Within the northern hemisphere, I would say this that anywhere I have been that they exist and we want to eat ducks, we're served green wing teal.
Hmm.
They're small, they're fat, they're succulent, they're delicious. You
Yeah, it's
know,
one of my favorites.
and
I did a thing last year. I shot a ringneck, and I was like, okay, these things are tough
oh,
to clean, and that's why I think
I got
everybody
a
doesn't.
story. Go
Nobody
ahead.
likes them because they're tougher to clean. It's hard to get that skin off of them. Okay, well, Cable's going to do a little taste test here and see if these birds really deserve the bad rap that they get. So I plucked one, left breasted it out, but I left the skin on the breast, and took a torch and burned all of those little pin feathers off, whatever. And I salt and peppered it and put it in a cast iron skillet with olive oil and cooked it to medium rare. Pull it out, and of course I videoed this and be like, took a bite of it. Not bad. Not bad. I was like, yeah, this is edible. And then I took the green wing teal that I had hidden off camera that I cooked the same way. So now let's try green wing teal. Took a bite of the teal and I was like, nope, ringneck's not any good.
I got to, I'm so glad you
I
brought
mean,
that
you can
up,
eat it, but
Cable.
I was like, teal's so much better. I'm just
I
being honest.
love, I love shooting ringnecks. They are a fun duck. They
Oh, for
are,
sure.
and you know, at times they're very common where we hunt.
They save a lot of hunts for North Texans.
My oldest son is 28 years old, and when he was 8, 9, 10 years old, he got into taxidermy. Some of these birds up there, or some he mounted when he was a child.
Mm.
And the two best species for him to practice on were ringnecks and ruddy ducks because they got skin like boot leather. So break. Last year I'm hunting down in Southwest Louisiana, great, beautiful club property, and I'm out there with one of their staff. We're in his blind. And he said, "Well, we're gonna shoot a bunch of ringnecks this morning." I said, "Yes, sir, yes, I love shooting ringnecks." And I said exactly what she did. I said, "Man, I hate to clean them things. It's like
Mm.
skinning a deer." And he looked at me and he says, "Boy, you're doing it wrong."
Hmm.
I said, "Sir?" He said, "You don't ever skin a ringneck duck." I said, "Sir?" He said, "They the fattest and they lose the pin feathers the first. You whole pluck a ringneck duck. You don't ever skin a ringneck."
Huh.
So we got done hunting. He said, "Which six you want?" I said, "I want six. I want them six ringnecks right there." And I took them back there to their camp, and the ladies whole plucked it, and I made a Christmas gumbo. Cable, I will never ever breast another ringneck duck. I shot some ringnecks 2 weeks ago at camp. Plucked them, baby. Now we
Uh,
got mechanical plucker. I plucked them. They are white. They got white fat. They got a lot of visceral fat up inside them. They are and the flavors in the fat. That's what's so good about them bears, man. You got to have a
mm-hmm.
fat duck. And I'm on a kick right now. I love my gumbo and make a Christmas gumbo. I've got a few recipes. I like chicken fried. You better believe that. I always do chicken fried somewhere I go. but I am on a smoked duck kick right now. It's more of a ham. It's a you cure it for pickle it for various salts and sugars and whatnot, and you soak them for 12 hours.
Hmm.
Take it out and let it kind of air dry and get tacky for 10 to 24 hours. And you put it on the smoker, it's 160 degrees, and it is fine, fine, fine. If somebody don't like that, you just don't like
Mm.
duck. You don't need to be duck hunting. But
No,
I
that sounds
love duck.
delicious.
I love duck.
Let me ask you this. So I have this group of guys that come down from Missouri, and we meet in Seymour, Texas, at my buddy's lodge there. And I think this is our 10th annual, and
Wow.
they don't have feral hogs there, so they come down, and also our duck hunting is better than theirs. And
What?
like
Wow.
historically, they would say it wasn't that way, but like the places that, and one of these guys is closer to your age, and then it's his nephew, and he's like 20 years ago it was great. He's like, but some migration patterns change, agricultural practices change, things change.
Yep. Yep.
He's like, y'all's hunting is way better. Anyway, we shot all these ducks, probably like a 5-man limit of puddle ducks, and we my buddy Greg, whose lodge it was, like, we're gonna eat the tongues. And so I don't know if you've ever done this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I beat them in China.
Oh yeah. Well, so we
Who knew there
took
were
them.
6 bones in a duck tongue?
Right, right. But you just take that little bone, and then it's like eating a mussel or something, and you just slide the meat
Yeah.
off in your mouth, and we just sauteed them in garlic and butter and salt and pepper. Oh my gosh! I never would have thought that that was an
Unbelievable.
edible part of a duck, much less a delicious part. But
I
that
think
was
I think all the parts of an animal are, so if you take a cow or take a like a pig, everything but the squeal and the moo's edible.
right. Yeah, right. Um, well, right on. Well, tell us where folks can follow along in your adventures. You also have a podcast as
Man,
well,
we
which
do. I've got a podcast, Duck Season somewhere. We try to do one or two, mostly two episodes a week, and it's just wherever I did some UK, Argentina, wherever I'm at the time, I do some podcast and Instagram, Ramsey Russell, Get Ducks, all one word, and GetDucks.com. I mean, we're somewhere.
hmm and we'll see you in Nashville. You'll be at
You'll see
SCI.
me in Nashville at SEI, buddy. You better believe it. With all the topics we've been talking today, the anti-hunters and the issues, Safari Club International, besides having the most kick butt convention you've ever walked, don't and you better bring your walking shoes if you're going to try to do it. Man, they absolutely are relevant in today's day and age. With all
Absolutely.
the anti-hunting and some of the legislation and stuff coming down the pipe, we can't live without SEI if we like to hunt.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean they've got the Hunters Embassy right there on Capitol Hill in D.C. fighting for our rights every day. So,
Hmm.
well, we'll see you in Nashville, my friend. Thank you so much for the time. Happy New Year. And where are you headed off to next?
Well, I'll be at camp for a week, Christmas, New Year, and then I hit the road, Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, jumping
Okay.
around into till February, and then February I hit Azerbaijan and Mexico.
Living the dream, man.
Trying to.
Living the dream.
Thank you, Cable. I've enjoyed
Yep.
it, and folks, thank y'all for
Yeah,
listening.
absolutely. All right, we'll see you soon.
All righty.